Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of the Burning Question series by Fantasy Football Scout. In this series, normally Harry and I discuss the hot topics of the week, but today we are joined by a really good friend of mine and someone I'm very excited to talk to, also beloved in the FPL community, I believe. Welcome, Danny, Move FPL, also known as Bullet on Twitter. Sorry Harry couldn't be joining today. He had some personal reasons, but Danny, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, cheers, Andy. It's been a long time coming on it. We've always been we've been chatting for a long time and been friends on Twitter for a while. We've talked about doing it, but no, it's good to be here. It's difficult to fill the boots of someone like Harry, obviously, well, impossible really. But if I can do half as good a job as him, he's a bit of a pro. So if I can do half as good a job and not be too unbearable, then we'll do all right. But yeah, it's good to be on.
Yeah. I mean, Harry is awesome, obviously, but credit to you as well. I think you've made noise within the community, and if you're not following Danny, guys, you must follow him. Just search for Bullet FPL, I guess, or Move FPL on Twitter.
Move 78, yeah.
Move
Move
78.
78.
There you go. But I've also seen you a couple times this season, I believe, on Above Average with our good friends Baker and Adam. So it's good to see you in the pod scene here and there.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, I thought this was the first time I was on Burning Questions, but I've forgotten that I did actually come on with Praz ages ago, and you forget because
I wasn't there.
with
Yeah.
Praz it was just like chatting to a friend about football, so I completely forgot that it was actually on a pod that I've actually been on. But yeah,
Yeah. Actually, actually, we shouldn't discuss this live, but yeah, Pross is obviously a big fan of yours as well, and he was speaking very highly of you this summer, is what I'll say. But let's,
that's nice.
yeah, let's first, I want the viewers to get to know you a bit because people who know you. FPL Richie obviously says, he likes you a lot, so shout out FPL Richie. But
Love you
yeah,
too, Rich.
tell me about sort of like not too personal, but like what you do, because I know you're involved in psychology from what I remember.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I teach psychology at university. I'm just involved in sport here and there as well. Yeah, psychology, skill acquisition, and FPL really
Mhm.
obsessing too much over FPL and whatnot. But yeah,
Nice. And we have your rank history up here. Obviously, the one that stands out is 2018-19, 513th in the world. You also have some great ranks here and there, as well as a 1.3 million as well. And ranks are just numbers; it doesn't mean much. But yeah, tell me about sort of your history and how you started playing, as well as that season where you got into, let's say, top 500.
yeah. I mean, the 1.3 million. I know people say this, but genuinely, that was the last of the kind of extreme casual years that I had on the game. Where I really started playing in 17, 18, and I actually my first ever season. You'll see was a top 10k, which was basically a dead team.
Mm,
Um, and I'm just like I'm an all or nothing type of guy. Like it's literally all or nothing. When I first played, I think it was that Michu season, and I just put together a team. Just it ended up being an incredible team with loads of luck at the start. And I remember just sort of going into work and being like, I was literally like top 200th in the world after about 7 or 8 weeks.
wow.
And I remember just sort of showing people because none of my friends played, and I was sort of showing people going, look at this, it looks like I'm like top 200 in this game. Didn't know how many people were playing or anything. Nobody else played. Nobody else that I knew played, and nobody cared. So I was like, well, nobody cares. I'm not going to bother putting any time into this. So I just became a casual then for years. It just put me off. And then, yeah, in 17, 18, I had like a mini league that a few of my friends joined. And importantly, my brother joined. So I was like, right, I can't lose this because I'll never hear the end of it. So I had to start taking it seriously again. And like I say, I'm all or nothing. So I went from nothing to all in 17, 18 and found Twitter that year.
Nice.
And then, yeah, took it from there and then obsessed ever since.
Very nice, very nice. So, last question before we move on. What type of manager would you say you are? Are you sort of aware of the high, EO picks? Are you more don't really care about that stuff and less gameplay and game state and just pure football? Like what's your thing? Data guy, eye test guy? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can never really put a finger on it. I suppose I'm like most people. I'm a bit of everything, a bit of both, and I'm constantly. I feel like I'm constantly learning. I feel like I'm
Mm,
constantly an amateur. Every season is like these huge learnings and huge mistakes, and you think, God, will I ever learn? But I think I kind of started out more of a instinctual player and just watching football, and I still watch the football. I like to pick up on what I can see. trends that I might see appearing, but very much into the data as well. I'll refer to models. I'll use models sometimes. FPL review, which is obviously brilliant, but I'm not dictated by it at all. I'll sometimes use it just to kind of maybe get a sense check or just maybe think more rationally. And it's brilliant. Sometimes it's brilliant for giving you ideas of players you hadn't even thought about. But I mean, it's been difficult for me this season because I like to watch all the games and I like to get a real sense of what I'm seeing. And I feel like when I do that, I can pretty much just rely on that. But this season, I've been so busy with work and stuff that I've not had a chance to watch much football. So it's interesting. I've had to take a slightly adapted approach. But I guess anyone who knows me on Twitter, I always talk about players who play and this kind of thing in minutes, and it's part of it is drilling it into my drilling it into my own mind. Yeah. Because I still make those kind of decisions, and I still try and pull myself away from it, like bringing Foden in this season, and then ending up with I don't know. I don't think I've had Darwin yet, but those sort of players that are less reliable. And I've spent the last few weeks trying to tidy up my team, and then it helps me tidy up my mind and think about the real reliable players.
Nice.
So yeah, I guess a kind of mixed approach really.
Yeah, very nice. I think the point you made about trying to learn is very interesting because I try to do the same. I think you keep learning as you play the game, but it's really hard to apply those like lessons in the future, whether it be the next season or the remainder of this season. I just think every scenario is so unique and different. So it's tough to actually apply what you learn, I feel. But interesting you mentioned that.
And it's I guess one of my constant battles is trying not to be too influenced by others and Twitter and so on, because we all struggle with that. And I think every season I fall into sort of similar traps where you kind of start well and then you become a bit cautious and you look at you think about ownership and who everyone else has got and so on, and then it's the same pattern for me every year, and then I spend weeks trying to just rid myself of that, and again just going back to the players that I like and so on. But yeah, that's always a challenge, is playing your own game, I suppose, as people say.
Yeah, very nice. So I guess for today, guys, for the pod listeners, I'm just going to run through the agenda real quick. I think the main questions this week, Danny, is pretty straightforward. And you'll find plenty of content, whether it be on Twitter or on YouTube, that sort of tackles on the same question. So nothing new here. It's just sort of like what our thoughts are regarding these key questions. And I think the good point to start on is what to do with Haaland and the Haaland situation and the effects it has. And then as we speak on Haaland, we'll naturally get into the premium defender discussion. And there's really two, like Trippier and TAA. That's it. And then you go down to the 5.5 million category, right? So I think that's why a lot of people are very hyped up on potentially bringing Trippier this week and TAA next week, or you bring in both this week, this and that, right? And as we're discussing that, we'll touch on some budget value defenders as well. Key questions on who to start this week. Then we'll transition sort of into the midfield options as we talk about Salah and Son's exit in a few game weeks, and talk about some potential replacements there. And we'll get to our bus team / captaincy for this week. So I feel like it's going to be very free flow discussion. I want to engage the chat today, so please feel free to put some questions up there and we can discuss. Good with that, Danny?
Yep, sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Okay, so let's talk about Haaland first, right? So the first thing is that the key information we have is, according to yesterday's game and sources out there, Haaland, Doku, as well as KDB will take no part in the Club World Cup. So they play, I believe, on Friday in Saudi Arabia. I don't think it's Saturday. I think it's Friday. That means he's not going to play Friday, and then he has a game next Wednesday versus Everton, followed by a Saturday game versus Sheffield United. Everton being an away game, so not the best fixture, as we also know Everton are playing pretty well. And then the money game is Sheffield United in Gameweek 20. So if, for example, he does return in Gameweek 20 and people have Haaland, I mean, that's a captaincy shout-out right there, right? So there are some interesting permutations here and there. My assumption is that most managers ended up selling last game week, but I'm sure there's plenty of managers that decided to hold on to him just to, keep more information. I think the question is very straightforward. Do you wait till, game week 19 deadline, that would be next week, before truly spreading the funds? Or do you just disregard sort of 19 and 20, start spreading the funds now, and know that you have a backup in a 2-move transfer in 21, granted, if you spread the funds now, game week 19 and 20, it might be tough to bring Haaland in. Everyone's a little bit different situation. So I'm actually on the boat of potentially just forgetting about bringing Trent and Trippier in this week and just having that fund in the bank to potentially get back to Haaland in one move in 19, because we're also very limited on transfers as well, right? So that's kind of the discussion I want to have, and want to know your thoughts on this whole Haaland situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it? I think we in Twitter sort of see that a lot of people have sold, but obviously I think the vast majority of people haven't sold, and certainly the vast majority of people who are not kind of engaged on Twitter and so on, I've seen a lot of people who still got him. And I think my general message on it and thoughts on it is you really need to be, I know it sounds obvious, but you really need to be really decisive at this point. And rather than kind of wondering and speculating and trying to hear this and trying to hear that, I think you have to realize that we're very unlikely to get any hard information. I mean, this is one of the things that I suppose one of my learnings as well was last season. I felt like I was very cautious and very indecisive, and that kind of fed into this season. Not to go off on a tangent, but it was things like that was when, like the start of the season when I sold Gabriel like last second. Like I don't think I would have done that last year with just 5 minutes information, but it was like you've got to make a decision with the information that you know and just go with it. Like the game moves too fast these days. It's too skilled. There's too many engaged managers and so on. And I'm not saying that means you need to sell him, but I think you do need to decide how you view it. So I decided that you know, based on last week, clearly he did have an injury. Okay, so first of all, he did have an injury, and then you look at the fixtures and you think, I mean, it's Boxing Day for one. So how much information are we going to get? Does anybody really want to be making crucial decisions on Boxing Day morning or on Christmas Day night and so on? But it's Everton away, which is, as we know now, is not a fantastic fixture. I know Haaland can obviously hat-trick in any game, but it's not a great fixture away at Goodison on Boxing Day at all. So there's a bit of a cushion there. And, you know, the way I'm viewing it, and again, I may be completely wrong. Maybe he'll be back for 19. Who knows? But he hasn't gone away with the team, as you say. Now, Everton is on the 27th, I think. So not Boxing Day, sorry, the 27th,
I think it's next Wednesday, to be exact.
Yeah. Okay. So it's on the 27th. And then they play Sheffield United on the 30th, Saturday. Days later.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, they don't play in the league again for like 2.5 weeks. 2 weeks. So you have to think, if he has got a remotely serious injury, he's a very important player. Are they just going to say, you know, have a set period off, go home for Christmas, forget about it, put your feet up, get in the ice bath? I've read that I read in the newspaper the other day that he's been seeing this specialist biomechanist called, I don't know, the Fixer. He's called the Fixer or something like that, because he's like, so he's obviously had to see a real specialist out there in Spain. But you have to think. So then you're sort of thinking, you're convincing yourself, you're moving beyond Everton, and it's 3 days later and it's Sheffield United home. Do they really need him 3 days later, Sheffield United home, when they could just give him the whole 3 or 4 weeks off and just say, come back in January and let's see how you are? It's too important. So again, that's purely speculating, but I would be viewing it and trying to decide one way or the other, because you either think he's got a very good chance of coming back in game week 19, in which case keep him, or you lean the other way and you lean towards saying he's probably not going to be back for a couple of weeks. And the game moves too quickly, as I say. And the other thing is you don't need to be too, I know this is obvious and information and everyone knows about it, but you don't need to be too concerned about him in 20 or 21, because there are obvious routes back. Obviously, Salah goes away to the AFCON, and he's got Newcastle in 20. So it's not the most difficult fixture to sell him. You know, if you're rolling, obviously, ideally, I think people want to be rolling the transfer in 19 into 20 to give them that option of Haaland in 2 moves, Salah out. So it can be easily done. And then what I would think is probably slightly more likely is actually that he's not back in 20. Again, just pure guess. But
the reason being is that you're saying there's a 2-week gap after, so actually just give him full rest.
Yeah, like why rush him? I mean, obviously, I know there's the argument that City they're not doing very well at the moment, so they do need to win every game, absolutely. But they need to keep Haaland fit for the rest of the season more than they do, get a result at Sheffield United. So at home, sorry. So yeah, I think there's a route back, and as I say, if you do sell him, there's lots of really good players. There's an opportunity to tidy up what looks like a really dodgy kind of weak defence for a lot of teams at the moment, and get him back easily. And there's always a wild card as well after it. I'm not averse to like using an early wild card. In the second half of next season. But there is a debate. I think a lot of people before I knew that Haaland was injured, I was looking at the other route, which was to keep him. and then maybe get a cheap Villa defender this week, which does help carry you over a little bit. People have got strong teams anyway, so a Villa defender, Sheffield United at home carries you nicely and easily into 19 and so on. What do you think?
No, I think I'm with you. So the two options I presented is whether to spread it now or wait just one more game week. I think it's very team dependent. For example, I'm out of transfers this week. I already did the Darwin to Watkins move, so maybe that's like that bias is in me to not go for Trippier and Trent for -4 and just wait it out and see if there's any news that he comes back in 19. But I do think that you make a very interesting point about just being decisive. I mean, we have limited information. I do agree that we're not going to get like a leak that he starts most likely, right? Or early news, about him starting either. So yeah, I think it's a good wise decision to be decisive. Granted, there's still a lot of transfers that have to be made in the next few game weeks. So that's my only concern about bringing him back is it going to be as easy as it seems in terms of selling Salah and Son with value tied up in them as well. So yeah, so I've been struggling with it, but I feel like I do agree with you. I think you have to be decisive and decide to sell him now if you're going to.
I think another. Sorry, Andy. I was just going to say. I think another factor for me is, again, and a part of this, be wary of me speaking because I can be persuasive and I'm often just persuading myself. But a factor for me as well is that I probably wouldn't captain Haaland in 18 anyway. I mean,
18.
Don't get me wrong. In 19. Against Everton. Even if you think he's the best captain, we don't know if he just gets a recurrence of his injury or if he is fully fit.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got Salah against Burnley, I think, who's going to play because he always plays. So that's another one that makes it easier for me. Like I'm not too concerned, and it's a bit like the comparison with the kind of game week 8 and game week 10 wildcards. And I would if my team wasn't so good for game week 8 and 9, I probably would have looked at selling Haaland in game week 8 because obviously it's similar now in the sense that you can then get those big players in defence, your Trents, your Trippiers, whoever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at how poor really the general defence, I mean, at the moment there's Trent Trippier, Arsenal defence, and not much else.
Not much else. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're talking about players who are nailed, who have got incredible, attacking potential. Trippier, Trent can get 18 pointers any time. So when you do spread that cash,
it is nice.
And you think, and you're thinking you're not going to captain Haaland in 19 anyway, and that 20 is a risk. You're backing it up with huge potential points.
Yeah, I agree with you here. I mean, like, people are hyping up, Paul Torres, Konza, Livermento's okay. Lascelles, like really, really sort of bland picks, right? We're picking him because they're in good teams and good defensive teams, but really the only ones that are high potential are Trent and Trippier. And I like the idea of, and a lot of managers this season, actually, if you look at it, like, let's forget about template picks. A lot of managers went against Haaland and have had really good seasons. I mean, at least from what I know on Twitter, right? So I like the fact that you're placing different Hall potential players in different positions and more numerous of a couple more of them, which in the long run can add up to be more points than just having Haaland and having Paul Torres, for example, right? So I'm not speaking badly about Aston Villa defense, definitely not. Like maybe I'll get him too, right? But it doesn't fill me with excitement as bringing in such a high potential player in Trent, for example.
And the other thing in terms of in the theme of being decisive and what you're talking about is it's not just we're talking about potential of defenders, we're talking about risk of defenders, and we're talking about what's known and what isn't known. And at the moment, a lot of those defenders that we've been able to work with and survive on, like your Livermentos, your Lascelles, I guess Simicast, but I don't know when Robertson's returning, but these sorts of players, they're becoming a lot more uncertain. And what we've got in the next few weeks is already a lot of uncertainty and a lot of messiness because we've got Salah and Son leaving. We've got decisions to be made on them and whether to replace them. And we've got obviously getting Haaland back. So we know that in the next few weeks, there are guaranteed transfers that you want to make in order to get the most out of your team that are not in defence, that are everywhere else other than defence. And whether you want to get Richarlison or Odegaard or anyone we talk about or Alvarez, or whether you need to get, these midfielders to replace and so on, or Bowen. And you're going to be faced with those decisions. And the nice thing about selling Haaland last week or this week, And getting those defenders in like Trent and Trippier, who are guaranteed to play, who can haul at any moment, is you don't have to worry about them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be in a situation where I've got Taylor and a Cash and still got a Lascelles and Livramento now, who's going to be a problem. It's not nice. You could get yourself in a real sticky situation.
Yeah. I mean, as we discussed this, I also, I think you make a very good point about how the game's getting tougher, and the longer you hold on to Haaland, right, and you don't spread those funds, and you're worried about, like, for example, myself, about trying to get back to Haaland in one move in 19, just in case, you're losing against the field, right? And the field this year is getting stronger by year, but also we're at the time of the season where literally every point counts. I still think that you can make a lot of gains. In the end, at the end of the day, we're trying to get the best rank possible and win our mini leagues. But in terms of rank, you need these Hall potential players to really, really shoot up and make a difference, right? And for example, I look at the previous game week where I was missing Watkins. I had all these players do well, and one player, obviously in Watkins, doing well, really plummeted my rank drastically. So I feel like we can't just be waiting 3-4 game weeks in order to, or else we'll fall behind, essentially.
Yeah, and you've got to find a balance. You've also got to be rational, and that's why it's very difficult in this day and age in this game to not. It's easy to panic and think, well, I need all these players. I've got to get that player that everyone else has got. And I think the message from me is don't think like that. What you need to do is you need to think about who you have got, how you feel about those players you have got, and whether you feel comfortable. So for example, even the kind of Solanke versus Haaland thing, even if you look at it over 1 week or 2 weeks, I'm thinking, well, I'm very happy to have Solanke. So I'm not interested in what everyone else is doing at that point. I'm not interested in worrying about hauls. I know Haaland misses one, he might miss two, and so on. And I've got someone like Solanke, who I know plays 90 minutes, is on penalties. The team's playing really well, and then you can look elsewhere. So you've got to, I know probably not communicating the right way, but don't panic. Just be rational and make sure that when you bring in players in, you're happy and confident with that player over the next few weeks, because that's going to put you in a position to think about the next transfer and not be having to tidy things up and clean things up and so just kind of be careful.
So as we were talking about this, do you want to talk about Alvarez first, or do you want to talk about Trippier versus Trent?
I don't mind. I think I guess they fall together. I guess if you're selling Haaland, it's you're potentially looking at Alvarez. Obviously, you're not this week, but it'd still be high up in a lot of people's minds, and a lot of people have already gone there, I think, for the following week because
19.
Because obviously, so 19, and then obviously 20, and this is where it gets interesting, because obviously if Haaland's out, people are assuming Alvarez is on pens, which makes him much better. If you don't go the Alvarez route, there's still a chance that Haaland isn't back in 20, and you could easily you could have two transfers and just bring Alvarez in anyway if you wanted to captain him and have him for that Sheffield United home game. And obviously, I think Alvarez is a great pick, but personally, I went for Solanke last week because I think Solanke for these next three is a better pick. And I guess one thing with Alvarez is, and it's probably not. It's not talked about naturally, because why would it be? Because at the moment he's playing and he plays every game. But I'm always wary, and it's just something to be wary of, that it's Pep, right? And things are not going particularly well for City at the moment. And you just never know what he's going to identify or what he's going to pick out that he's not going to be happy with or that he wants to change. And it could be anyone. Grealish is suddenly playing much better. Hopefully that'll be the case for a while, because I think he's looked at it and been like, okay, Pep, you've just brought me from Villa, you've turned me into this kind of ball retainer, and you've made me kind of cautious, and now this season you're saying you don't want me like that, you want a Doku. So I would imagine Grealish is not very happy about that, so maybe he changes the way he plays a bit. But so for all we know, one day it could just be like Pep's decided that Alvarez is not part of it's not working. We just don't know. And there's always that danger there. But I wouldn't. I'm not saying think that he's a massive risk, but you just never know with Alvarez. Whereas with the likes of Solanke and so on, you do know.
Just nailed for sure. Pens 90 minutes. I think there's talks about KDB coming back. Obviously, we've seen the pictures, but I don't think we should read too much into that. Whether it'll affect Alvarez's minutes, we just don't know when he's actually going to play. and he's going to probably be eased into the team. So I think you have at least a 5+ game week leeway in order for Alvarez to continue to play. And if Haaland's out for, I don't know how many game weeks, but if he's out, then most likely you'll get starts in the foreseeable few fixtures. But I think the point you're mentioning is that in the long run, like if we're trying to hold on to him for who knows how long, he can become a problem in due time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I agree completely. I think if De Bruyne is going to become an issue for Alvarez's minutes, then it won't be for a month or so. I mean, we saw. I mean, he may well come back in, and sometimes these players come back in after a long injury and they look brilliant for like 15, 20 minutes. You think, oh my God, he's amazing again. And actually, it rarely works like that. Like your body needs time. Sometimes it's a bit of just adrenaline of getting back on the pitch. And those pictures we saw of De Bruyne the other day, he looked a bit chubby to me. He looked, he's one of these players that. I think it takes him a while, to get really back to match sharpness and match fitness. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the counter to that, Danny, is that still it's City, right? And when you see an opportunity to get a City asset, it's the temptation is there, right? And as you mentioned, I think they had a really, really tough 4-game fixture. Can't remember when, maybe 13 to 17, let's say. Obviously they're 4th or 5th in the league. It's not going well, but City, I still feel like are going to be right up there and still the favorites to win the title, right? So the form is going to come. The wins are going to come, I do believe, right? So is there a potential here, right? Because it's not a normal situation. In a normal situation with City assets, you have to realize that they're going to get benched. You're going to get 3 out of 4 games, 4 out of 5 games type of situation. But if we're chasing right now and there's an opportunity to get an Alvarez who's been part of the team, like plans for the entire season from preseason, I remember he was playing that central role with Haaland. He's been starting with Haaland. There's something about Alvarez that Pep really likes. So that's the only counter I would say is that maybe we're sleeping on these City assets. Maybe the defense is tough to get to because we don't really know who to get to. Maybe the midfield's tough because there's a lot of rotation, but yeah, I think there is still a little bit of potential here is the thing I would like to say.
Yeah, and I don't disagree at all. And I suppose just to play devil's advocate and to argue against that, I would say that every season we say, is there an opportunity with City? Yeah. Are we all missing an opportunity with City? Even when they are the best team, and we look at Foden's and we look at whoever's in favour, and generally I've always said, they're not great picks because the minutes are too unsure, and actually, how big is that opportunity really? There are players in the league who play 90 minutes who have huge haul potential, who can get 15-pointer, 18-pointer every game. Whether it's not every game, but they've got that potential. Whether it's Bowen or Odegaard or someone who, I don't know. These players, or even Richarlison at the moment, who you would expect to start every game.
Yeah. No, it's fair.
Do the City players really have anything? Whereas actually, potentially got a problem in the future with City because you just don't know what Pep's going to do.
Yeah, I get it. Anyways, we have till 19 to worry about Alvarez. Like you still have enough time. You shouldn't bring him this week. Obviously, they're blanking, right? So, so we can assess again next week. Maybe we get more information about Haaland. But let's transition this. Let's say we're to spread the funds. Where would the money go first? Would it be that premium defense slot, Danny?
I think so, yeah. Again, because just what I mentioned, for most teams, it depends on your team and who you want to get in, and maybe people have got a kind of a potential Gordon problem and things like that. So it's not set in stone, but I think it feels like this is the time to get those players in place.
Okay.
And that's why I went for Trent last week. Really, I mean, I really like the look of Trent at the moment, basically. And it seemed he was pretty low key last week. And it seems like the popularity has picked up a bit more now. It's a bit annoying for me because it still ended up being a net -4 bringing him in because Livramento got 9 points and I sold Livramento for him. But very happy to have him in place. And potentially people, would understandably still be put off this week because they've got Arsenal at home. But I think, again, with these guys, you have to try to look at these defenders over a longer stretch and just think about who you're bringing in you can forget about. So I think... Porro's someone I've not got. He's cheaper, and he's definitely someone who anyone wouldn't argue with anyone bringing in. He's just a long-term hold, brilliant player. Again, we talked about defence loads of times, haven't we? That there's not been many clean sheets this year, and when we're talking about clean sheets, we're pretty much just talking about Arsenal potentially, and that's where the the value and the benefit of Arsenal defenders comes in, and everyone else, we want something else that they offer, which is why we're only talking about kind of Porro and Trippier and Trent. But it is a really interesting one about where you go, because obviously Trippier's got Luton and then Forest, which again with Trippier they could be 12-pointer, 18-pointer.
Yep.
It could be.
Yeah.
Good memories of hitting one of my hits this season was hitting Trippier in just before he got a 12-pointer and so on. So that it pays off, But like his fixtures, I think 20 to 22 couldn't be any worse.
Yeah.
So he's got 2 great fixtures, and then he's got Liverpool away, City at home, Villa away. So it's about as bad as you get for a defender. So that does make me even question it myself, because I'm possibly going to bring Trippier in this week and add it to Trent. But I've still got in the back of my mind, well, I'm very open to an early wildcard.
Interesting.
So if I am, then that obviously, and if anyone is, then that you should maybe bring that into question more, because you don't really want Trippier there for 20 to 22. I think bringing Trippier in would be suboptimal, according to models or whatever now, because he just literally has 2 good games and then 3 terrible games.
Yeah. But
it's Trippier, it's Luton, it's Forest. He is a long-term hold. It's not a disaster if you have to play him even at home to City or away at Villa. It's not a disaster.
How do you normally assess that? Like, if you look at Newcastle's fixtures, they have 2 good games, 3 bad games, and then 3 good games in a row, right? So like, do you look at it as a span of 6-7 game weeks, or do you look at it as just dependent on the teams and its fixtures? Like, how do you assess, like, because you might hold on to him for the rest of the season, right? Like,
yeah, and I think that's the added appeal with Trippier. You never know. You might not want to wildcard, and that's you can just leave him there, which I would probably find a way to do. But I do tend to normally look at just kind of 5-6, yeah, 5-6, maybe 7 weeks, which obviously with Trippier then doesn't reflect that well, because you need to have someone you can play instead on some of those games. But again, it's just a piece. There isn't much on offer in defence. There is, maybe people have got 1 Arsenal defender. You don't necessarily want 2. So whether you go Porro, Trent, Trippier, I think Trent is the best for me at the moment of all of them, despite the price. He just looks so good. Everything's going through him at the moment. Bonus every game. I'm not hugely put off by their fixtures, because I don't think they'll clean against Arsenal, but they could, because their tough fixtures are at home, aren't they? Anything can happen at home. And obviously, with Trent, I think the biggest thing, because Liverpool aren't clicking all that much at the moment. They don't look fantastic right now,
offensive wise.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, isn't it? Is Van Dijk appears to have come back this season. So Van Dijk, when you combine Van Dijk with Alisson, and they've got lots of kind of worthy partners in for Van Dijk, you can get cleans any game. Alisson's just ridiculous, obviously. So yeah, Trent looks on it. We're very, very happy to just leave him there, no problem. And it's one less position to worry about. I'm not going to rotate him any game, and that's the nice thing about Trent. Trippier, I think, is one down from that, because you would look to rotate in some of those really tough ones in 20 to 22.
Yeah.
Porro is just a long-term keep, and his numbers are ridiculous, and they're better than Trippier's the last 6 weeks or so.
I think most teams have Porro anyway, so we don't even need to discuss. Oh, you don't have Porro? Yeah. Okay.
No, every week I wanted to bring him in, but something's happened. It was like before Haaland was injured, I was just going to bring Porro in, for the Forest game. Every week I've wanted him, but then last week I just felt I want to get Trent in place first, and now it's Trippier. So it's whether it's Trippier or Porro for me. But the thing is, again, with Porro, is there's an opportunity. I think he's got Bournemouth at home in 20. So again, if Haaland's not back in 20, there's potentially a transfer there if you want to get him then.
Yeah.
So I need to think on that. What do you think about those guys?
Yeah, so I think Trippier is obviously not in the best form. I believe he made a mistake yesterday. I didn't watch the game, but you also think about when a lot of us brought him in and he went on this like 4 or 5 game week. I would like to say game week 6 through 10-ish, where he was just doing an assist every game, right? So, and then a lot of us hopped off him. I think it was due to the wild card, or just naturally we hopped off him because the fixture turned, and we were like kind of afraid that he'll continue to do this well, but he didn't actually perform to the standards that we had him for when his fixtures were really good, right? So I do think that there's opportunities to hop on and hop off Trippier, and this might be the chance to hop on him with these 2 good fixtures coming up, all potential fixtures coming up. But there's a lot at play here, right? They're tired, right? The team is, sort of, Trippier is just mentally maybe not there edge-wise. Maybe I don't know, confidence thing. I doubt it, but there's something going on here. But I also want to not get too deep into that because Trippier can easily do a lot of damage in these next two games. Trent, I'm a big fan of, and I think you're right. Like, I think we forget that Trent is still just 25 years old, Danny, which is, wild. 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, he was still like an academy player. And it was Klopp that, sort of honed him, brought him into the team, and really protected him a lot throughout his career. Like him and Klopp are hand in hand, right? He's still 25, right? We know he's an amazing wing back. We all know this. And we've always been critical about his defensive ability, like defensive liability, let's call it. But Klopp was always there to protect him. Like he was saying, it's not Trent's fault, it's the team's defensive fault. And I can specifically remember Gary Neville's pointing this out to Trent, and he was protecting him. I think it was last season or the season before. So, what do I think of Trent? Like, forget about defense, forget about offense. Like, I think he's one of the best passers in the league, right? And definitely the best passer at Liverpool. KDB to City, like when you think about City, who's the best passer? KDB. When you think about Arsenal, who's the best passer? Odegaard. When you think of Tottenham, Maddison. Manchester United, Bruno. Chelsea, Enzo. All midfielders, all attackers. And you have Trent as your best passer at Liverpool. So he's a defensive asset in FPL, and you have the best passer in the league, right? 23-24 season, long pass successful attempts, number one at Liverpool, 4.9 attempts per game. Key passes, 2.4 per game, number one at Liverpool. Big chances created, 9, second at Liverpool. This is a wing back, right? And I also think that a couple of seasons ago, Southgate used him in 2021, I believe, as a sort of like a midfielder or number 8, I would like to say. And I remember Klopp saying, like, I would use him as a number 6 and not as a number 8, right? And you'll see, like, throughout the game, he'll start off as this inverted wing back, and then throughout the game, as he gets into the game towards the second half, he'll move into the center. And his heat map is proof of, like, where he's all over the place, right? So, he's playing number 6, he's playing wing back, he's playing all these positions. His form is coming back. He has that, occasional outside the box 30-foot shot on set pieces. We have the money now, right? You're getting like one of Liverpool's best players and passers as a defensive player, and there's potential to get these clean sheets here in and here out. But obviously, there's some tough fixtures in between, sandwich in between as well. But I do agree with you. I think it's hard to look past Trent. If I'm not trying to hype him up. I'm just saying, like we all know this. But also, his defense has been getting a lot better this year. I would say as an individual player. And, you just mentioned Van Dijk coming back to his best. Well, Klopp said that it's the team's fault, not Trent's fault. So if the team's defense is good, obviously Trent's defense is going to be good as well. So, yeah, I think everything is sort of adding up to be a good time to get Trent, to say the least.
Yeah, and just to add, there seems to be a bit, maybe it's just me convincing myself, but I think there's a bit of an aura about him at the moment. Like, I think he is one of the best players on the team, obviously, but I think some people say he's the best player on the team. I'm not sure I go that far yet with Salah still there, but I think him and Salah are the best players on the team. But I think he's now starting to carry himself as if he just knows he's the best player in the team. Mm-hmm. And I thought about it when they played us on Sunday, when they played United. And there's about 6 or 7 times in a row towards the end of the game where he was given the ball in that kind of deep right position. Mm-hmm. And you just saw him, he just calmly knocks down the ball, rolls it forward, and then lines up a cross that's invariably the best cross that anyone will do in the league with De Bruyne. And you just you can see him thinking, I know that the best thing that can happen, that this team can do right now is my cross. I know that the best thing that this team can possibly do now is my pass into that deep area.
Nice.
And there's just no doubt in himself, and you can just sort of feel him. You feel him like appearing on the screen all of a sudden. Like you missed that chance that I thought he would score when Salah rolled it up, and he was just outside the box. But you can feel him coming, and you know that if you if he sees a shooting opportunity, he's just going to roll it out in front of him and hit it.
Yeah.
So there's just something about him at the moment. I just think it's one of them for me. Get on him.
Yeah, I'm fair. I think, okay, bringing it back, let's close this discussion because we've been on it for a while. Maybe order Porro, Trent, and Trippier. We also have to keep in mind that they play Arsenal this week, whereas, Trippier plays Luton this week. So there's that as well. If you were to just bring in one, let's assume you already have Porro, right? If you were to just bring in one of the two, would you just disregard the Arsenal fixture and bring Trent in first, or would you consider bringing Trippier and then Trent next week?
It's really tough. I think if again you have to be decisive and decide if you're going to get both long term or which two you're going to get long term.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to really go. You probably have to really go Trippier this week if you're going to get both.
It's a sensible play, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not.
Sorry to cut you off. Are you assuming that we'll end up with both anyways? Like we're all talk right now, right? Like everyone's talking about these guys. You think everyone's gonna end up bringing both? Like let's.
No, I think most people won't. I think most
really?
people won't.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then that's a different thing.
People are going to get caught out. There's going to be lots of other transfers to make in the next few weeks.
Okay.
In midfield and up front. And again, so I'm not convinced that they will, but. Yeah, I'm not concerned about Trippier. So I guess the one concerning thing with Trippier, I saw like Focal's tweet, and he was saying about Trippier pulled out from the England squad or something for personal reasons. I can't remember when that was. The timescale thing is a long time ago, but I guess there's a worry that there's something in his personal life that's affecting him. But I'm not going to read into that, and I think some people are just trying to think about ways to convince themselves to get Trent instead. But I'm not concerned about his form. It is what it is. He could bounce back at any moment, and it might just be more determined than ever against Luton. So he's always going to be the hub of that. And the thing is, it's just such a well-oiled machine in Newcastle. Everything goes through Trippier.
Yeah.
And you're just not surprised every match if he gets an assist or whatever. So it's a really solid play. But Trent is the better long-term pick without a doubt, and it might be you should always make a long-term move. Really, a relatively long-term move, 6 to 7 weeks. If you get Trippier, you're going to have to get someone else in the next couple of weeks, whether it's Porro or Trent or someone else. And obviously, we don't know what could happen next week and what injuries could be thrown up and so on. And so it's really tough. To be honest, I'd be really happy with either. And you just need to pick your way.
Yeah.
I suppose I don't know if you want to move on to it next, but I guess because I know people will be wanting to talk about things like Lascelles and Livramento.
Yeah, I think we should talk about it. Yeah, it's a good point. Like for example, I have Livramento, right? So we'll discuss that. One question I would like to ask though, would you bring him for a -4? I know it's very, very team dependent, but if you were to bring Trent in, would you bring him for a -4 this week, or would you just wait it out for one more week? I think it depends on how well you assume that Trent's going to do this week, right? But
yeah, I think you just don't. I think you just don't do it this week because I wouldn't. I hit him in last week because I was very confident they'd clean against Man United, or at least as confident as you can be for any team. And also because I think part of this reshuffle with the Haaland thing and spreading the cash requires a hit somewhere. It requires you just kind of get ahead a little bit with the transfers, and so I don't mind a hit at some point, and I don't mind if you want to hit Trippier in this week, or even if, I don't know, it depends what the state of your defence is. If you want to go for the Porro route, I don't think you want to hit Trent in playing Arsenal because I expect Arsenal to score.
Yeah.
So maybe just maybe do the hit next week if you want to do the hit for him.
Okay, fair. Okay, 45 minutes in, Danny. So I think you're right. We need to move it on. Let's talk about these budget defenders. Aston Villa, highly talked about. Pau Torres, Konza. The real like key guys would be the wing backs, but it's a disaster there, right? In terms of FPL, because Cash Moreno, like who's going to play? Not Cash, sorry, Digne and Moreno on the left, and then you got Cash on the right, struggling to get starts for every game. And then we've got the Lascelles Livramento situation. Granted, now Schär seems to be out, so maybe Lascelles is a little bit safer in terms of the next few game weeks. But Livramento, it's not looking good as a Livramento owner. I'm very worried about him starting from here on out, and probably a transfer waiting to happen. So, yeah, give me your thoughts on these budget defenders from these two teams.
Yeah, again, I'll just try and be like strict on it because that's how you've got to try and view these things because otherwise you get yourself in messy situations. But I think Livramento is a big problem now. I sold him last week, obviously. If we
Oh, you
end up
did.
getting auto subs,
Hmm.
if we end up getting auto subs, it's going to cost me 3 points because I sold him over Lascelles because yeah, it's a bit annoying. But I sold him because obviously with this week in mind because I might want or need to play Lascelles. And to be honest, I thought Botman would take a little bit longer, but obviously played 45 minutes last night.
Hmm.
And then Shares got injured anyway, so I think Lascelles looks fine for the next few weeks based on the fact that we've heard that Share got some kind of recurrence of a hamstring injury, and Lascelles has been really good. So I'm not worried about Lascelles. Like it's gonna in my mind it will be Lascelles at the back with Botman or Burn.
Hmm.
And obviously, if Botman's okay, then that has implications for Livramento. Livramento is a problem now. I wouldn't want to be going into any game week starting him, to be honest. Just trying to be strict about it because if Botman is okay to start, I think it's more likely that Burn will start than Livramento because Howe just loves him and it's kind of he seems to love it tactically. And Burns is just this big monster, 6'7" of a bloke who's so powerful and he just probably offers them so much aerially and whatnot. He played really well the last game. Howe speaks really well of him. So Livramento could be fine. He could play. He could risk it. I wouldn't want to have him there. I think you'd be fine with Lascelles for a couple of weeks, at least. Once Botman and Share are fully fit, you'd imagine that Lascelles gets dropped again.
Hmm.
And then on the Villa front, I see people on Twitter asking things like, Digne or Moreno, and for me, I think the answer is no.
Yeah, me too.
Just why would you go there again? Like why are we talking about taking a risk on players who 50-50? Obviously Moreno, I think if he's fully fit, maybe Villa fans would say he's going to be the one, but we don't know right now and we're way off that. So
Yeah,
that would be a no. I think obviously I don't know the full update on Pau Torres' injury, but it was supposed to be maybe injured, which if he is, looks good for cash because you would imagine Consa goes centre back. If he's not, then they're all a problem. I think before I was going to sell Haaland, I had Diego Carlos lined up in 18. He looks fine.
yeah.
He's only 4.4 and he looks nailed. He's been playing very well. So I like him because there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
If Pau Torres is fit, then he's fine, but we don't know he's fit at the moment.
Yeah.
So other than that, I don't really like any of them. I don't see any of them as buys. I can't think of a buy within that unless your plan is that you want to hold Haaland, which is fine. Then Diego Carlos looks okay. But again, it's you patching stuff up. That's why I want to go cheap as well because you're plastering stuff for a bit. You do get Sheffield United at home, and then I think Burnley at home in 19 or something or 20 or something like that. So you've got a couple of good games for your Villa defenders, but with your Villa defenders, what you're getting is potentially a clean sheet, especially with someone like Carlos.
Yeah.
You're getting potentially a clean sheet and nothing else.
That's it.
And maybe 6 points or nothing else. And it's not like Villa have been the most. Villa are cleaning. It's typical Digne in it. Digne cleaned Chelsea, City, and Arsenal, whatever it was, and nobody else. So it won't surprise me at all to see Sheffield United score this week.
So the only thing I'm like not that hyped about Torres, right? I think people are going there. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, for example, I have to go there. And the reason why I would have to go there is, for example, maybe I need a budget defender and Aston Villa makes sense. And he rotates really well with Newcastle Trippier because when Trippier has that tough fixture in 2021, Aston Villa have solid fixture 2021, right? So you could play him there. I get that, right? But like if that's the case, like I'd rather just go for the most high potential clean sheet team in Arsenal and much more deadlier on set pieces in terms of Gabriel and Saliba, right? So yeah, I think you're right. The Pau Torres pick is just a straightforward, you're betting on clean sheets for the good fixtures that they have. That's about it.
It doesn't feel long term, which is my issue with it. Like I keep going on about on this episode is what's long term, and it's not something that you'd be on your bench. So it depends how much you want to spend. I prefer the Arsenal guys if you've not already. You don't want to be doubling up on them at the moment, but Arsenal defenders long term again is just a nice solid one. Yeah. I don't really like Villa. You say 20 and 21, like they're green, but you don't want to play a Villa defender away at Everton.
Yeah,
at all. So that's 21 is a no-go entirely for me, but they do have 18 and 20.
Yeah, Yeah, 18 definitely.
Sheffield United at home and Burnley at home. Yeah.
Okay, fair. Just to wrap it up, I guess the only viable picks from Aston Villa would be Pau Torres and Konsa, but even Torres, we're not fully sure if he's 100% fit. So just FYI for you guys. And
Diego Carlos. 4.4.
And Diego Carlos, yes, obviously. Any preference out of the three, or not really?
Honestly, how much is Torres now?
Chat? Anyone want to help out?
It's not someone I've actually ever looked at yet. So, I mean, because I imagine he's like 4'7" or something, is he? I'm completely guessing. 4'7", yeah, he's 4'7". And he's flagged. So if I was bringing one in, based on what we know now, I'd bring in Diego Carlos probably.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, I think good discussion on the defenders. Let's transition sort of into the midfield before we get to the bus teams. And what we have here is a graphic by Rob TFPL on Twitter at Rob TFPL. Shout out Rob TFPL. And this is sort of just a good sort of graphic visualization of when you might imagine guys like Salah, Son, Kudus, and all the rest of the guys that go to Africa, Hwang Hee-chan as well, when they might be returning, depending on how well they do, right? So, for example, if they make it all the way to the winning stages, they'll most likely return sort of game week 25, 26 is the situation for both teams. The reason also that they're not missing so many game weeks is also because there's an international break that collides with these two cups. So, yeah, very interesting graphic for your visualization. I would assume that, as a fan of Korea and knowing how good our team is, at least we make it to the semifinals. I'm very, very confident about that, right? And so I would assume that we're going to be semifinals or finals for Son and Hwang Hee-chan. For the AFCON, I'm not that sure. I don't know the African national teams that well, but I'm assuming Egypt's a pretty decent team. Maybe I think a couple seasons ago they lost to Mane, right? And they couldn't make it to the World Cup or something like that. So so we would assume that they also get to the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. But the reason we're indicating this is that pretty soon we'll have these midfield slots that open up, and where we go from there is going to be a question mark. So players like Richarlison, Bowen, Kulusevski, Odegaard, Jesus up top, like all these guys are going to become options in due time. So just want to know your initial thinking in terms of, approaching these two key players that are going to be leaving soon. Danny.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask you about Son, what you thought. So you think semi-final, final. Okay, so that'd be the case. He's
95% sure we'll make it to the semifinals. That's a bold statement, but I'm very confident.
This is not a beware of fans situation, is it? I can actually listen to you.
No. This is pretty unbiased. I think we're in a golden era. Like anything can happen in knockout stages. Like please forgive me if they don't make it to the semifinals, right? But unless, like for example, if we get paired with like Japan in quarterfinals, that's tough. But I think we should be in separate categories where I think the two top teams will be Iran, us, Japan. Potentially like guys like Australia as well. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I've not got to the stage of thinking too much about Son yet in particular, I suppose, because I think in my mind it's going to be easier to get back to Haaland if and when we want to through Salah. So I would imagine that for most, Salah will be sold first. I've not looked at how much money I've got tied up in them as well, but I've probably got quite a lot tied up in. I know Son's gone up a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it obviously just, in terms of getting rid of one or both, it probably just depends on what the rest of your team looks like and what it's looking like in terms of how long they're out. And I'll probably think about it more when I get to that point. But I would imagine, that let's just assume Haaland's back in 20 or 21. Then Salah goes. And then for me, I've already got Bowen, for example. I don't have Gordon at the moment. And my inclination is towards Richarlison if he stays in the team. Or someone like Odegaard, but it might depend on how much they can afford. And that's the other thing about when you said about getting Trent and Trippier in for people. that puts quite a lot of restrictions, obviously, moving forward in terms of your replacements there. Probably doesn't give people an awful lot to spend. You pretty much got Solanke's price or less. So I think Richarlison's the obvious option. And I would imagine that's where I'll be going at the moment. And then if you were to sell Son, you're a bit more freedom with Son, because Salah this is how I'm seeing it myself. Salah is to get back to Haaland, and Son is like you keep him or you sell him for someone and you can get anyone in the game, really, pretty much. I suppose even maybe De Bruyne, but I wouldn't want to go there. I'd probably go for Odegaard over De Bruyne. So I'm not thinking too much about it yet, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
What about you?
One of the things I'm toying with, one of the ideas I've had, and Danny, I'd like to know what you think about this, is that, like, let's say we, like, most likely I feel like I'm going to end up selling both Son and Salah. I don't have that much value tied up on them, so I don't need to, like, worry about that too much. And so if we do that and spread the funds, and I definitely want both back in due time, right? I know there's, like, arguments about Liverpool's fixtures not being great from 25, 26, and same thing with Spurs. And yeah, you can argue that, but these two are like some of the best, like three of the best assets in the game, right? Two of the best assets in the game, right? So at some point we're going to want him back, and it's going to be an advantage if you get him back early as soon as they return, I feel, right? So one of the ideas I've been toying with is that I know there's a blank in 29 coming up. I know there's a double, I believe, in 34-ish coming up, and another blank in 33 because of the FA Cup semifinals and this and that, right? So maybe it's not too bad to just pull the wild card early, whether that be in like 25, 26, 27, when it might be very, very hectic. Like, we can't really assume that right now, but it might be chaos then, right? With all these transfers waiting to happen when they return. So I've been toying with a early wild card as well in the back of my mind, which, as you mentioned, is being decisive in the sense that, all right, let's make these moves. Let's forget about like what's going to, like, if it works out and pans out where I can get these players back in a couple of moves, couple of hits, sure. If it doesn't work out, okay. Like, I still have the wild card to fall back on just in case is sort of the mental approach I have moving into this really important period from game weeks 18 through 24, 25, right? This is like, we know the doubles and blanks are going to come, and we engaged managers have an advantage there, but like all of us engaged managers are on a level field for these next foreseeable 6 or 7 game weeks. So you might as well just try to maximize the crap out of it. And then, yeah, so I don't know. That's a weird idea I've been toying with in my head.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. And that's what I sort of mentioned earlier in terms of that's the path I'm probably more likely moving towards now, having sold Haaland and spread the cash, because obviously you're then dictated by Son and Salah later on how badly you need them back and whether you need them back and so on. And because obviously Haaland, if he's fit, is someone who just stays permanently now, probably. So that is the question. And again, I think it's fine, to be open to that early wild card. Absolutely fine. But again, who you bring in now and what all these moves are that you're making will also help and probably give you more options in the future. So if you're spending your time getting rid of minutes risk players, dodgy players, are you replacing them with really solid long-term picks at the moment, whether they're defenders, midfielders, whether you're picking a Bowen over a Foden and things like that, in my view, that's going to put you in a more comfortable position moving forward to move around those midfielders and sort out the Son and Salah situation. So you probably have more options. Fair. So yeah, with you.
Nice. Okay, I think that was good. I think that's it. Any before we move on to team and discuss some, we can discuss more throughout the team discussion. But any other players you want to touch on, or anything else you want to discuss?
Well, I suppose I'm just trying to. I'm not very good at doing this because I'm always just thinking about my own team and just going my own little. So I suppose people are wondering about Gordon.
Yeah.
But I don't really know what the update on him.
The update was that it's just a knock. It's not like an injury. Yeah.
Okay, so in that case, he's probably fine then. I mean, maybe he gets a rest soon, but I mean, how does seem to strike me as a manager who, if you're in his strongest team, you will play unless you really can't play.
Yeah.
I don't think it's I don't think he's probably necessarily in need of a rest. If he's got a big bad graze and he got a dead leg or something like that, it's probably fine. He's probably going to play.
Yeah, agree.
They've got great fixtures, so maybe just don't worry about that too much. But obviously, I guess the thing with him is he is a problem when you get to 2022. So he's got two good fixtures. So that maybe there's an additional transfer for people further down the line there in terms of your Richarlisons or your Bowens or your cheaper mids. Yeah, I'm on Bowen. I like Bowen. He's got his drawbacks, but I'm very happy with Bowen long term.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if other than that, I don't know unless I'm missing something.
No, I think we're good. I think we can move to the team news. I mean, there's other players maybe we can get into depth about. Oh, actually, maybe we should discuss Odegaard a bit because he's been looking really, really good. And the reason I want to discuss Odegaard is that let's say you aren't tripled up on Arsenal assets. Let's say you have one defender and Saka. Sensible play might be to go double defense and then go Saka, but I think there's potential here to go for a guy like Odegaard as well because he's looking really good, looking dangerous. He had a lot of opportunities to score in the previous game. I actually watched that game and felt like he was all over the place. He's still coming quite deep. He's still coming deep to receive the ball. But he's looking like that dangerous Odegaard that a lot of us had last season. So, yeah, definitely a sleeper of a pick, I think, and potentially someone I might be suggesting in a couple of game weeks' time when the likes of Salah and Son go. So, yeah, one to watch out there. Any thoughts on Odegaard?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, he's one of these players, I suppose, at the moment who kind of brings together that kind of eye test thing and the numbers thing, isn't it? Like with Odegaard, I always feel like you can really see it. You can see it in his game when he's suddenly on it. And yeah, and it does look like last season. Suddenly, it's just an extra spring in his step, and he's just suddenly everywhere, and he's receiving the ball all the time. He wants the ball. He's advanced. He's shooting. He's passing. He's just. There was a time last season when it was just like, this is ridiculous because it's basically KDB except he's nailed and he's probably more attacking and kind of more fit. And there was a period in my mind last season when I would have taken Odegaard every day of the week over De Bruyne. And I think that's the case now. Absolutely. I mean, obviously De Bruyne is injured, but he suddenly looks like that player last season again. So he just looks like a really solid. I mean, he's probably still going to take the odd pen as well, isn't he? I hadn't really thought about that, but Saka spreads him around, so he might get the odd penalty as well. But he suddenly looks really good, and you can see it. And then also it's reflected in the numbers as well. Like the last 3 or 4 weeks, maybe he's over like 0.5, 0.6 non-pen XGI per game. So it's just suddenly spiked, and you can see it in the numbers as well as the eye test. So it just looks like a really good pick if you've got a transfer there, or you want to go for something. And I don't hate it this week. I know it's Liverpool away, but it's not a good fixture, obviously. But he's so involved and he's so central to them that if they get something, wouldn't surprise me if it's Odegaard.
I mean, that Liverpool fixture is a good fixture for him, and then he has 4 amazing fixtures. I mean, long-term fixtures for Arsenal are great. So I definitely think people might be sleeping on Odegaard. And the thing I really liked about this previous game week is that I felt like he was greedy to score. Like he was greedy to take on shots. I mean, there was a couple opportunities where he could have made that extra pass, which we've seen him do throughout the season, but he's in that greedy mode where it's not a bad greedy, it's a good thing, right? So, yeah, definitely someone I'm keen on.
Yeah, I like it. I like Odegaard. As I say, I've not managed to see enough football, but even in the flashes that I've seen in the last few weeks, it's definitely taken my eye. Probably should have scored against Villa, but for that incredible Martinez save as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of people. I mean, if we get to that point and South Korea do get to the semi-final, and I think probably a lot of people will make the Son to Odegaard move.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I think any other sleeper picks? I mean, Alex Micha is mentioning Bruno. I don't mind it. I would just wait maybe 1 or 2 more game weeks to assess because this previous game week versus Liverpool, what Ten Hag did was just completely sit back. And it was actually a good strategy. I mean, they're missing a lot of key. I thought they were playing a very defensive approach and did a good job, even though they got like 30-something shots on them and throughout the game. But it doesn't fill me with super confidence to go Bruno right now. Is the point I'd like to make. Yeah. How about yourself?
Yeah, take a brave person to go there because we're not seeing enough from United, are we? That, at best we're functional, and at best we're kind of we look like we can move the ball around the pitch and make it difficult for the opposition, but we don't really like creating many chances, and we've not got much going on up front. But it is Bruno. He finds a way. He's the perfect FPL creation. If he's in a good team when he's on it.
That's the first I heard. Yeah.
It's everything you want in a fantasy football player. Typically, this is the worst team he's been in for a long time. So it's still Bruno. He's on pens, and they've got really good fixtures for. I mean, they've got West Ham, Villa, Forest, Spurs, Wolves, West Ham, Villa, Luton, Fulham.
Yeah.
So someone who wants to have a bit of fun and they've got cash, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. If you're thinking about what do I go for a Bowen, or do I go for a Foden, or do I go for those kind of players, then there's nothing wrong with going for Fernandes.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say, doesn't excite me and doesn't fill me with hope.
Yeah, same. Okay, guys. So before we get to the teams, please do hit the like button, subscribe to FFScout. Also, do give Danny a follow on Twitter, move78_FPL. Really, really fun account to follow. I mean, your banter is great. Your, let's call it jokes is great as well. And just overall, a really, really good guy. And I appreciate you coming on, Danny, in Harry's absence. And yeah, I think you're open to DMing with anybody, right? So yeah, give Danny a DM. And I just got to know him through Twitter as well. And I think we've become pretty close friends over the, FPL friends. And hopefully I can meet you very soon. But yeah, pleasure to have you on today.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Yeah, definitely. Probably need to change my Twitter name now. I'm still called Bullet on there. Don't know why, but that may need changing at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks. No, pleasure to be here.
Why is it called Bullet? Like,
because I literally just created some random FPL account that never thought was get any followers at all, just so I could reply to people and people wouldn't, and Bullet was like an old gamer name on like Halo or something that I had, and it was just literally it was like a thing at the time. And I also in real life put this hat on in front of my mate, and I've got this ridiculously pointy small head, and I put this tiny hat on, and my head looked like the tip of a bullet. So it was like an old gamer name plus somebody said it that week, so I just randomly said. And then when it's just people just know you as that now, don't you? But even though probably needs changing at some point.
I can relate to that, Danny, because I'm not old, but I'm at the age where I don't play games anymore. But let's say 10 years ago, I used to play a lot of games, and the two games I played a lot were FIFA, and on my phone I used to play Mobile Legends a lot. I don't know if you guys know this game, but my ID was Sonaldo 7 from like 10, 12, 13 years ago. And every ID I made after that, whether it be for gaming or let's say your, even Adobe, right? Like, or Microsoft account or whatever, I would always call it Sonaldo. And then when I made this Twitter account, I wasn't thinking about it. I was like, all right, how are people making these handles? Capital letters FPL _ and then like hamburger, right? So like naturally I just did Sonaldo. So that's how my name came about as well, through a gaming ID.
Yeah, well, yours is good, so that helps.
Is it?
Fits the theme, doesn't it? Sonaldo. Everyone knows Sonaldo. People just tend to refer to me as Danny now anyway, so I might as well change on Twitter as well. But yeah. It was Halo. It was Halo when Halo gamer tag back in the day.
Original Halo? Have you played the original Halo?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good man. Yeah, can't beat that game.
Oh, yeah, so good.
All right, we have your team up here. You want to read it out for the pod listeners, and then talk me through what you're thinking.
Yeah, sure. I'll just get it up on the thing. I was trying to check the chat because I'm not very good at multitasking yet on these pods, and I've not seen anything in the chat, so I don't know if I've missed anything. But yeah, my team is at the moment I've got Dubravka in goal, Lascelles, Tsimikas and Trent starting in defence, Bowen, Palmer, Saka, Salah, Son, Solanke and Watkins captain at the moment, Ariel on the bench, Gabriel first sub, Taylor and Mubama. One free transfer. Probably going to be a defender move. So then I've got questions that I need to think about actually today or tomorrow, but it's whether to sell Taylor or Lascelles, probably. Obviously, there are pros to selling Lascelles in the sense that I may want or need Gordon if I get a load of injuries in midfield in the next few weeks, and I can't that's if I get Trippier, sorry. So I may make the suboptimal move of Trippier in for anyone. I've got loads of money, so like I don't know, 5 million, 6 million. So I might get Trippier for Taylor. I could get Porro. I could roll. The optimal move would probably be to roll, almost certainly. But I'm not really feeling Alvarez anyway for next week. So I've got a decision to make on whether to sell. I mean, obviously, if I don't sell the cells, I think he's okay now for the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got Forest at home next, obviously. I may want to play him there. I may need to play him there. So if I get Trippier, problem is I've got triple Newcastle again. Triple Newcastle defence. They've conceded 7 goals in the 2 games that I played in triple Newcastle defence, and then I sold Livramento and benched Lascelles for their clean sheet last week, so that was nice. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Whether it's slightly leaning towards Trippier, having him there leading it, because I've got solid players in place for now. Don't want to jinx it. I've got solid players in all the other positions, so I can move those defenders around if I want to potentially. And Gabriel's nice to have there. Tsimikas just looks good at the moment long term. I don't know when Robertson's back, but I assume it's not for a while. And Trent sitting there who won't be rotated, so there's maybe an opportunity for me to just go Trippier, get him for the next 2, and then just leave him there. What do you think?
Very complex, but why? Have you thought about doing Lascelles to Trippier? Is that too what?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's another option, so that I don't have triple. But obviously, it's just, and that's fine. It's just that
because we have to assume at some point Lascelles is going to be. I guess you could do triple.
Yeah, but I mean,
complex.
There are a few things there. Like obviously, yeah, like Forest at home is a really nice fixture next week, and I'm not sure about this manager bounce. Like I don't know how much the players really wanted Cooper to go anyway, and then Thingy coming in is not the most attacking minded manager anyway. So I mean, yeah, keeping Lascelles gives me the option. We also Botman could get a reoccurrence of his injury. Cher might be out for 5 or 6 weeks. I got Lascelles on game week 10 wildcard around about the same time when we just thought he might be. He's basically looked to me at the time that he would definitely be fine for 2 or 3 weeks, which was nice because he was 3.9 million. So I got him at 3.9, and he's like, what is he now, like 4.2 or something? So yeah, selling Lascelles is an option, but I might just sell Taylor instead, who I'm never really going to want to play because it's Taylor.
Yeah,
I got Lascelles at 3.9 anyway, and Lascelles gives me an option of getting him at home to Forest if I want him. I could bench Bowen, for example, away at Arsenal, or if I get another injury somewhere else. So, it's rolling, or it's Taylor or Lascelles to Trippier. Outside chance of Porro, and maybe Porro is a more sensible move long term, but Trippier, I just got Trippier with those 2 fixtures. There are very few players that you just feel. And I don't want to jinx it, but especially when you talk about Forest at home, there are very few players this season where you feel really confident of just big points. Like it's crazy. He is a ridiculous pick this season, and everything is oiled around him in a team that are now out of Europe, that are getting decent rest, that are going to be a bit angry. They're going to focus entirely on the league. They've got getting Botman back, Burn back, Bruno Guimaraes, who missed a game through suspension recently. They look great. They look solid. So Trippier is one of those players where you just feel like I could easily get a 12-pointer and then an 18-pointer here, and I'll have a piece of that, and then I'll work around it afterwards.
Yeah. So you're just valuing Trippier over Porro, just like for like on paper first of all. So that's why you're not considering.
What I don't like about it is it goes against what I've been saying about making solid long-term picks right now, because Porro is a very solid long-term pick.
It is, and a good fixture in 18.
Yeah, but it's difficult to see them get a clean sheet against Everton because they've not been great defensively. They might, but again, my leaning is towards Haaland not being even back for 20. Maybe he's back for 21, although he could easily be. If he's not back for 20, then I can just get Porro that week for Bournemouth at home.
Okay, fair. Okay, I like it. Yeah, I was gonna just throw out like, have you not been considering Porro, but I understand you
every week.
Yeah, you value Trippier over Porro, and especially like it'd be too late to bring Trippier in next. I mean, not too late, but you want to bring him in for this one and the 19 essentially before the next difficult 3.
Yeah, it's now or never. It's now or never. Although the one weird thing is Boxing Day is just weird all the time. Totally random weird results happen. People concede 3 or 4 goals out of nowhere because they were all drinking too much and eating too much turkey and stuff the day before and whatnot. So you don't really know what's going to happen on Boxing Day. But
Are
yeah,
you yeah, sorry to cut you off. Are you like set on starting both your Liverpool defense and not doing Gabriel over Tsimikas, for example?
if I bring Trippier in for Taylor, then I'll bench Tsimikas probably and play triple Newcastle defense.
Oh, right. If Taylor
Probably.
comes in, if Taylor goes out. Okay, got it.
Yeah, but I don't hate Liverpool at home to Arsenal. I don't hate it. It's just because there isn't much on offer, and they're both good. They've both got attacking threats. So
Okay, fair. Nice.
rest of it, I think, looks okay for now. Happy with Bowen, Palmer, Solanke, Watkins. I think Watkins captain now for me, just with Son being on the left. It's
Yeah.
not doesn't look quite. It's I'd penciled in to have Son captain for this week. The whole previously for a while I was quite looking forward to it, but
Yeah.
on the left it doesn't seem to have quite the same potential. And then obviously Villa play. I think is it Friday night Villa play, but they can go top of the league, and so Villa at home Friday night, fans going wild, celebrations, chance to go top of the league above City and Liverpool and Arsenal. It's crazy. So, yeah, I think it's just Watkins for me there.
Yeah, team looks good. Okay,
How are you looking?
Yeah, my team here is Dubravka in goal, Porro, Livramento, Saliba at the back, Gordon, Saka, Palmer, Son, Salah. Up top, I've got Solanke and Watkins. On the bench, I've got Areola, Gabriel, Taylor, Archer. I already did Darwin to Watkins, I think on Sunday, or maybe it was Monday, because it was the most obvious straightforward move that I needed to do. So I was just like, forget about the potential of something ridiculous happening in the next few days. Like my value, like I wish I knew the value off the top of my head, but it's definitely not good, Danny. So I just feel like I need to maximize all these like rises as much as possible whenever I can. So I just did it. So now I have 0 transfers. Haaland money in the bank. Which is why earlier on the pod I asked, like, would you do a -4 for Trippier or Trent? Because that defense is not looking great. If Livramento I knew for sure was starting, like, I think I would just move on and roll and just bring Trippier in another time, because I think Livramento would be decent cover, right? But yeah, that's the big glaring issue in my team. Like, I could just start Gabriel, right? But that doesn't fill me with excitement or confidence. So that's where I'm at.
I probably would take a hit in your case here. I think
Really?
I think you've done the right thing in making the Watkins move, because you just got to get it done, especially if you're going to captain him this week. It's just so much better. It just needs to be done. But as I said before, I think hits 1 or 2 maybe for a lot of teams are going to be necessary and be fine.
Okay.
For these next few weeks. Livramento could easily play. I just have, for me, there's just too many doubts. I see him as a 50 to 60% chance of playing, maybe at best, and then you're gonna have that every week. So, I don't see a big problem with the 4 with a hit, because you're getting yourself a transfer ahead. So even if you end up with a net, I know it's not going to sound optimal, but even if you end up with a net -2, -3, it's a pretty bad case scenario. You still got that player in place, and you've got rid of a bad pick, and it's. And then obviously, if it is Trippier, there's huge potential there. So the defense feels. Well, it's good long term, because you've got double Arsenal Porro, so it's great. But just this week, it's maybe a bit messy. So I don't mind the hit at all.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I think I'm 1 transfer behind the pack. The reason being is I went to do the Watkins to Darwin and Darwin to Watkins back move in the last 3 game weeks. So in general, I'm 1 transfer back. And what I mean by that is, on paper it doesn't look like I'm 1 transfer back, but I had to bring Porro in for a -4, for example, last week. So I don't mind hits right now. I don't know if people are in general thinking that hits are bad, but right now I don't think hits are bad. I think hits are okay, just to set you up for at least the next, 6+ game weeks, right? So yeah, I don't mind a hit. I was just wondering if it was worth it with this defense that I have, because if Livramento was to start, but again, anyways, I'll have to take a -4 later down the line if I want to end up bringing Trippier in. So yeah, I guess it makes sense to just bring him, take the hit, and have these 2 good fixtures because Trent is most likely the transfer I'll make next week.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, just bear in mind, like it is, for want of a better word, suboptimal. I use that word because it is an important reference point. It's not like I'm saying don't do it because a model would say not do it. I'm just saying that you have to bear in mind that it may be best to not do it. But if this was my team, I would probably take a hit there because I feel that you are going to need those transfers, and I feel like it's fine to get a Trent or a Trippier in long term, as you say. So yeah.
Nice. Okay. So you'd go Livramento to Trippier for a hit, or even Taylor.
Yes, if I knew I was going to get Trent next week, I can't help but feel that Trent is the one.
I haven't even thought about who I would bring Trent in for. I mean, I guess I could do Livramento, Taylor out to Trippier and Trent, but that's like
But your other option is just to not get Trippier and just get Trent instead, because then you've still got a great defense moving forward long term. It's a nice long term move, and just sort of roll the dice and hope Luton get a goal. And I mean, I guess you'd have to say that it's more likely Luton score that they don't. Wow. So in which case, maybe definitely consider just going straight to Trent, because Trippier's a problem in 2 weeks and Trent's just a long term. So I would at least consider it, because then you've got Porro, Trent, and double Arsenal, which is lovely.
It's more than enough. It's lovely, and it gives me the optionality to once in a while do 4-4-2, and I guess if I brought Trippier and Trent back, that'd be super big at the back once again. So definitely food for thought. I appreciate it. Yeah.
No worries. Are you captaining Watkins as well then?
No, I'm on Son right now. I'm on Son.
I was going to say the picture you sent me's got Son. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Which I don't hate.
Yeah, it's the Sean Dyche that worries me. I mean, he's the guy's built like a unit, first of all. So that's probably how his team's defends. And I'm trying to make a terrible joke here, but yeah, if it Everton, not easy. That's what's holding me back. And Watkins, Sheffield United at home seems super straightforward, but my heart says Son. So who knows? Maybe I'll go there.
Okay. Yeah, go with your gut. I think Gordon will be fine as well. I think, based on what I've seen, I'd be surprised if he doesn't start. But maybe I'm out the loop there, so don't take my word.
Okay, great. I think that's it, Danny. Any final words you want to say to the chat? I'm sure we'll have you on multiple times, and let's do one with Harry as well, because I love chatting with you. And actually, guys, I always hit up Danny once in a while, when 1 hour before the deadline, when I'm panicking, just to get his thoughts, and shoot him a DM, and get engaged with Danny as well. I mean, not engaged. Get talking with Danny as well.
No, thanks, Andy. Appreciate it. It's great to be a pleasure to come on. It's good to chat to you as always. And then sure we'll be chatting soon. Although if you text me 1 hour before the deadline on Boxing Day, I warn you that I may not may not be compos mentis.
Yeah. Guys, I want to shout out the chat. The chat has been lovely today. There was a couple of really nice comments, so really appreciate that. We do have one super chat. Great show, guys. Tofolo over Poro for a -4. Who is Tofolo?
What's his name? Isn't it from for Forest? Isn't it? Player that I never considered. Sorry, just need to remind myself who's who here.
Yeah.
No, isn't it?
Forest. Yeah. Left back for Forest.
So what's the question? Sorry, not striker. Sorry.
Would you do Tofolo to Poro for a -4? I think.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That was okay. Who Forest got again this week?
Forest have Bournemouth this week. That's it, and then their fixtures get bad.
Again, hits are bad, right? Everyone just remember that. Okay, hits are bad. Like, take them. Be careful when you're choosing them. At the moment, I think there's a good argument when you're talking about these great long-term defenders, Trippier, Porro, and Trent, where it's justifiable because we need to get ourselves in position. So it depends on the rest of your team, but I don't hate it. I just think I'll be surprised if Spurs get a clean sheet. So you still relying on Porro. But then again, Porro is a potential 20-point player who we've all got away with one, I think, recently with Porro, with him only getting like 5s and 6s. So it's fine. Don't hate it.
Nice.
I can't see anything else in the chat, but I've only just gone on there, so I don't know if there's anything missed.
I think we're good.
Thanks, Big Tips.
Yeah. Thanks, Big Tips. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. Please do hit the like. Please subscribe to FFScout. Leave some comments after the videos. Any feedback is welcome, even if it's bad. Hopefully it's good, because I do want to continue to improve the content as well as the show, and I think it's very important to me to make Burning Questions worth your time. And an hour and a half is a long time for you guys to be sticking around, so really, really appreciate it. The least I can say. So we'll see you next week. We'll see Danny very soon. And good luck this game week for the blank Gameweek 18.
Cheers, Andy. Cheers, everyone.